With plans underway for President Lee Jae Myung to make a state visit to China early next year, South Korea's foreign ministers Seoul and Beijing are currently planning a summit between President Lee Jae Myung and Xi Jinping. For more on what lies ahead for relations between South Korea and China in 2026, we're joined today by Professor Lim Eunjung, professor at the Division of International Studies at Kongju National University. Professor Lim, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So what might be on the agenda if a meeting between President Lee and Xi does take place?
Well, it has been a while, again, for the both capital, again, the Seoul and Beijing, to have the summit level meeting. And the President Xi Jinping, he visited, again, the Kongju when we hosted APEC this year. That was very meaningful visit. It has been more than 10 years for the Chinese president to come to, again, the Korean territory, so which was very meaningful moment. Vice versa, again, likewise, again, the South Korean president, again, the visit to China, it has been a while too. So again, the President Lee Jae Myung's that visit to Beijing, if it's really accomplished in the early next year, if so, it is itself, I will say, again, it's very much meaningful for the two countries' relationship. Agenda, we have many different and meaningful, important agenda. For example, again, the supply chain issue. As we all know, China has very strong the power in the structure of the global value chain, especially in terms of the critical mineral supply. As we all know, again, South Korea, our strength for the manufacturing, of course, the semiconductor is one big thing, or like a shipbuilding, steel making, or like a battery. Those kind of things are all need a critical mineral as input, indispensable input material. So if we can really stabilize those kind of, again, the supply of those kind of critical mineral, it will be very much meaningful, not only for the South Korea's economy, but also for the whole global, again, the market as well. So I guess, again, the kind of economic security issue, supply chain stability issue, those things can be constructively discussed between the two leaders.
Right, economic issues are critical and crucial in bilateral relations, but Chinese structures in the West Sea continue to be a thorn in bilateral relations. Would a meeting between the two leaders significantly help resolve this major issue?
Well, to be very honest, I'm pretty much a little bit ambivalent about that specific issue because we, of course, I'm not trying to support China as that kind of, again, the activity, because this is done in the PMZ. PMZ stands for, again, the Provisional Measure Zone. Because as we all know, is that it does need a 200 nautical mile, and the sea, again, the West Sea, it doesn't have really 400 nautical mile between the China and South Korea. So, which means, again, the EEZ can be overlapped in the sea. So that is why we set up this so-called Provisional Measure Zone. Literally, it does mean that, status quo is very much important. So even though China has this kind of activity, they will explain this is not against, anyone, or they are doing this for their research or like a fishery. However, fish farm actually. However, if they install those kind of artificial installation, I mean, in that region, in that sea, we are very much concerned about a possibility of changes in the status quo. Again, the status quo is the condition, again, the precondition for the stability in the sea. Again, we don't want to be again against or like offensive to one and another. So I think this can be a agenda between the two leaders. But as I said, earlier, I'm pretty much a little bit doubtful actually about how much really the two leaders can agree on this specific issue. But certainly, again, Korean society is pretty much worried about any, changes in the status quo, which can undermine, again, the stability of the region. Mm-hmm.
I see. So a lot to discuss. And since China is such an important key partner for South Korea economically and diplomatically, how should South Korea navigate its relations with Beijing in the coming year? What steps do you think should be taken to balance relations between China and the United States in 2026?
Well, U.S.-China strategic rivalry, it cannot be ended very much soon. We all know this because, they are competing for the future technology. It is not only about just trade balance issue, or it is not only about, who has more like chips, for example. It is beyond that kind of level, which means, again, the U.S.-China strategic rivalry will continue for a while, I think. So having said that, again, the South Korea's position is, of course, difficult because U.S. is, of course, our ally and one of the largest market in the world, one of our, largest trading partner. At the same time, China too, as still it remains as the largest trading partner for South Korea. And more importantly, when we are trying to dealing with, again, the North Korean issue, again, China's support is, again, significant, crucial. So again, we need to have a good balance, again, between the two very much important country for us. However, again, of course, I guess, again, the strategic calculation is more, how would you say, can be more emphasized next year because all this, tension, as you just, this news, ArirangNews, as you guys already showed, again, the North Korea's that kind of, again, the newly recent movements for the nuclear power submarine-like strategic weapons. Again, considering all this kind of, again, the new challenges in this region, probably, again, the strategic relationship with the U.S. can be emphasized continuously. However, at the same time, I will say again that we definitely need to continue the good relationship, sustain the good relationship, constructive relationship with the Beijing as well for the, of course, the peace in this region and the stability of the region as well.
Right, we'll have to see how that plays out in the coming year. All right, Professor Lim, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for your insight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.